Reaching for Research by Students for Students was created by the BIO5 Institute to introduce our experiences to undergraduate and high school students interested in working in research labs. Listen as our guests describe their path to STEM and their current work, so you too might join a lab and discover more within the world of science.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Reaching for Research by Students for Students. I am Jordan Pilch, a senior here at the University of Arizona, studying molecular and cellular biology and microbiology. I am also a student worker here at the BIO5 Institute. I work on the PA team, and today I am joined by Rafi Romero. Rafi, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Jordan. I appreciate it.
Do you want to go through and tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Rafael Romero. I am a first-year master's student studying biomedical engineering here at the University of Arizona. My undergrad was also in biomedical engineering, and I had a minor in mechanical engineering. So I really love engineering. Other than that, on campus, I've been involved in research. I've been involved in housing and residential life. And more importantly, I've been involved with one of my clubs, Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, where I'm constantly giving back to the Hispanic community.
That's so cool. You are also our first graduate student that we are having on here. So that's an interesting thing to do. So far, we've only had undergraduate researchers.
Yeah, for sure.
It's going to
Pretty
be a
exciting
fun time. We'll get to see a little bit of a difference between undergraduate and graduate research. And so kind of to get us warmed up and into our conversation, what was your journey into STEM?
Yeah, for sure. So coming into the university, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I guess I took inspiration from my grandfather and my father. My grandfather was a contractor, my dad was an electrician. So I knew I wanted to do something hands-on and something that impacted a lot of people's lives.
Yeah.
So when I came to the university, I didn't know if I wanted to go into med school or if I wanted to do engineering. And that's one of the reasons I chose biomedical engineering. It was a perfect gap between health and engineering.
Oh,
Yeah,
gosh.
for sure. And so once I started my engineering career here at the university, I realized I could do more good in engineering. And a quote that one of my professors told me was that, like, if you become a doctor, you save 1,000 lives, but if you become an engineer, you save millions. So that was pretty impactful.
Which professor said that?
It was a random biomedical professor in one of my intro engineering classes. He was trying to convince us to do the major, and that's just something that stuck with me. So.
It seems like he managed to convince you to go ahead and do the major, considering you're now a graduate student in that.
Yeah, he got me real good, so.
That's kind of a good question as well, into the journey aspect of it. Why did you decide to go to graduate school?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like many people here, a lot of people are struggling from the pandemic that's currently going on.
For sure.
And I thought at this time I've always wanted to pursue a higher education, and there's no time like the present is what they usually say. So that's why I wanted to go into grad school. One of my long-term goals is actually to get my PhD and eventually start teaching. Yeah.
You want to teach? What do you want to teach?
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't decided if I want to teach at a more professional level, like at a university, or if I just want to go back to my roots and teach like a more underrepresented community, just to give back to those that like gave me a chance, you know?
I definitely understand that. That's been a huge part as well. How did you get into your current research position? Because you're also working here in a research lab, correct?
Yeah, that's a good question. So my current research, I'm working with Professor Dongkyun Kang, and he's currently doing a lot of optical sciences, optical imaging. And I guess the way I got into my research position was I took one of his classes as an undergrad, and I really enjoyed him. He's a great professor, and he offered me this chance to like, oh, hey, I have this position open in my lab. I think you'd be a great fit. And I went in, saw the lab. I met the research people in the lab, and I thought I'd be a great fit. So that's how I usually got in, basically over email. It's not as hard as it looks. You just got to send a few emails, be nice to the right people, and the opportunity will come.
That is actually really good help. Sending the email is sometimes the first step that you just need to go ahead and get into there. You're actually our second person, I believe, who had said that they joined a research lab because they knew somebody who had worked in one of their classes. What was it? You said that he reached out to you, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Why do you think he initiated that chain of emails?
Yeah,
How
for
did
sure.
you go through and continue after being asked to join a lab?
Yeah, for sure. So I did well in one of his undergraduate classes that he was teaching, so he knew I was like smart enough to do the work. And he really liked my background I had. So I have a background in 3D modeling and 3D printing, and he thought that was very important for one of the projects he had, so that's why he brought me along.
I love that. And in getting into that research lab or in getting into graduate school, have you encountered any obstacles? Have you dealt with any uncertainties within yourself, you know?
Yeah, for sure. So, like I mentioned before, or actually I did mention this, but I'm from a small town, Rio Rico, Arizona. It's a very small community. It's near a border town of Nogales, and down there's not a lot of opportunity for STEM.
Yeah.
And so, me being a first generation college student, just trying to figure this all out on my own. I know a lot of my cousins and my sisters see me as like a role model that are coming to college just because I am the first of all my family to come to college. So I'm kind of like leading the way. So definitely a lot of obstacles that I'm helping them manage so they don't have to go through some of the things I went through.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
I'm really, really happy about that. There are probably a lot of first generation students out there as well who are also trying to get into research and they are also trying to deal with college. Do you have any like advice or tidbits to give to them?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely just attend your like professor's office hours. Anytime a professor is holding an event or like study session, I would definitely attend. That's where you build the more one-on-one connections with them. Additionally, I would join organizations on campus where professors are very like, I guess, present in, and so that's one of the ways. I know we have the Biomedical Engineering Society where we have professors come in and talk about their research. So that's like another good way to like network and make those connections.
I love that. So what are you doing in Dr. Kang's lab at the minute?
Yeah, for sure. So like I mentioned before, I'm doing a lot of 3D printing and 3D modeling, which I'm currently really enjoying. It's kind of difficult, but it's pretty fun. Then I'm developing a confocal microscope to help determine.
For those that don't know, what is a confocal microscope? What is
It's a
it?
very fancy microscope. Basically, what we're using it for is we're taking images of skin on patients, and we're determining if there's a more serious issue, or if it's just like a weird-looking mole kind of situation.
That's important. So is this more directed towards cancer research? Is it more directed towards general ophthalmology kind of things?
For sure. Yeah, we're currently working with the Department of Dermatology here at the University of Arizona, so we're looking at the more cancer side.
That's awesome. It's definitely bringing the collaborative nature of BIO5. Wow. So is there anything else you wanted to mention about your research lab?
I guess that's like pretty much the gist of it.
Okay. Are you enjoying it there at least?
Yeah, I'm enjoying the lab people. I'm enjoying my lab professor. Overall, it's a really good time. It's very like challenging, but at the same time very rewarding. So,
I like that. I can dig
great
it.
time.
So this is kind of like your work in STEM and all that you're doing there, but you also mentioned a lot of other things in your introduction as well. Outside of STEM, what are your passions? What are things that get you motivated and keep you going throughout your day-to-day?
Yeah, for sure. So one of my, I guess, mottos I go through is just giving back to the community, essentially.
You mentioned that a lot.
Yeah, so I like to help out the Hispanic community and any other underrepresented communities. So one way I do that is through my club, SHIP, Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. So we hold like a lot of different events for different kinds of like populations. So for example, I know we hold like 2 engineering events for middle school students and then high school students. And I know this upcoming November we're holding a bigger event for the Hispanic community of like the older generation, where we teach them about technology, security, things like that. And we're holding workshops for them in English and Spanish.
That is so interesting and wonderful. I know that my nana and tata would probably go to that event if they knew about it, and I now know, so I'm going to definitely tell them and mention it so that way maybe they can go in as well. My tata worked as an electrical engineer for a while, but he knows absolutely nothing about computers and security awareness, so it's really funny to see my dad, who is a very white man, trying to explain to my tata, no, your password cannot just be 8 characters. You do need to go through and protect it a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what we're teaching them in those workshops. Basically, like, starting with like no knowledge to like some knowledge to like a little bit more.
I love that. And is it just more general skills, like this is what the protection on the internet should look like, or is it more like training them in IT departments for like future careers?
Yeah, it's more of a just like general knowledge. So we're just teaching them the basics of computer languaging and stuff like that in terms of like just computer security. And then we're doing more like professional development workshops where we're teaching them like how to use like Microsoft PowerPoint or like Google Drive and all that stuff.
Those are really important things to know.
Things like that.
That's awesome. You had also mentioned that you are involved in housing here at the university.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been a part of housing and residential life here at the U of A for, makes me seem old, but about 4 years. So I participated in housing in a certain capacity. So I was an RA for about 2 years, a resident assistant in the dorms.
Where were you at?
I was at Colonial de la Paz, and then I was at Arbol de la Vida. So I was in those 2 dorms where I was able to help students, first-year students, go through college and make that whole high school, college transition a little bit easier for them. And then another role I had in housing was I am a desk assistant currently at Arizona Sonora dorm. And that's just me working the front desk, helping students if they have any questions or things like that.
I mentioned this, like I didn't know you before this and was not the lead RA at Arizona Sonora last year and worked with you.
For sure, Jordan. Yeah, we've definitely known each other for quite a while now.
Oh, yeah,
so.
because I was also stationed in Highland District the second year that you were an RA.
Mm-hmm.
Long time, lots of things in housing. Do you have any like tips and tricks for students that are maybe like doing research and also staying in housing? Those that are doing research and are a part of housing as an RA or a desk assistant?
Just definitely time management. I know at my first research position as an undergrad, I was an RA as well. And it was just a lot of balancing and just knowing what to do when, or where, and what, and like all that jazz. But yeah, just time management, basically.
And this definitely relates to our very last question, which is, what advice would you give to your 16-year-old self? And then what advice would you give to somebody who is trying to get into research?
Yeah, for sure. That's a good question. So to my 16-year-old self, I just definitely say get involved. Don't be scared to say yes or no. Like, go to events, go to things, network with people. I know a lot of my friends that I have right now are through clubs I've joined, organizations I've been a part of. And so definitely just being present is the most important thing I can say to my 16-year-old self. And then for research, just don't be afraid to reach out. Talk to your professors. A lot of people don't realize that professors are people too.
That's what we're doing here.
Yeah.
That's the main goal of this.
Yeah, so that they're people too, and that they're not as scary as they may seem. Yes, they grade some of your exams and things like that, but you know, they're overall like, they're human too. So
I'm so glad. Well, thank you so much to everybody who's out there in the audience that is listening to this episode of Reaching for Research. And thank you so much to Rafi.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course, you were a perfect person to come on here. You had so much wisdom and knowledge to go through and share with all the students.
Yeah, I'm just glad I was able to help. So.
Thanks for listening to this episode. Rafi was our first graduate student, so we want to provide resources for that group. Go to gradcenter.arizona.edu for additional resources. Also, seeing yourself in higher education is important, so we encourage you to reach out to the University of Arizona cultural centers and clubs on campus. With that, we can't wait to see where you go in the world of science.